I'm very proud of my son Brian. He was an amazing person. He was, he had 3 pilot's license on airplanes, a regular license, a commercial license, an instructor's license, and he flew UN Chinook's helicopters. When his helicopter was hit, it was flying in tandem with another helicopter. He was flying a Chinook 47 over Al-Fallujah, which even at that time was known to be a site of resistance fighters. Even the Chicago Tribune said so the next day. So, yeah, it was. And so our military sends 2 helicopters with 36 of our citizens each right over Al-Fallujah. Yes, yes, that's what they do. And now they've finally figured out that people are shooting at our helicopters on purpose. Isn't that nice? Yeah, they're very, very smart. Very smart. For 40 cents on a dollar, 40 cents on a dollar of our income tax, they've managed to figure that out. Isn't that nice? Almost 4 years after this happened. I get a little angry sometimes. Sorry. It keeps me from crying. Works for me. But after his helicopter was shot down, the second helicopter that was in tandem with his landed, and one of our people, our troops there, said, I know his mother. Isn't that an odd coincidence? Yeah, I know the mother of one of the troops that was on the second helicopter. And her son said, and she's very proud of this, I'm sorry. Her son said, no pictures. This is holy ground. So I just kind of backed away from this, you know. She's real happy her son came home. She's not too happy that mine didn't, but she's happy hers did. So I back away from this because it's not holy ground. It's not holy ground, and there ought to be pictures. It's very, very unholy ground. You've seen that beautiful, beautiful picture of my boy, my baby. You've seen that. And you've seen the displays of the faces of the fallen, and his is on there too. Well, that's not what they look like after they've been killed. And he did not fall. He was an excellent pilot. His last words on this earth were automatic rotate, and that puts the helicopter into emergency mode. Those were his last words on earth. That helicopter did not fall. It was shot down by a heat-seeking, shoulder-fired missile the day after our troops had been kicking in doors in Al-Fallujah looking for weapons. Guess what? They missed one. Now, you might know, people might be a little bit mad about that, and you might not send 2 enormous unarmed helicopters over that town, but that's what they did. That's what they did, and they're still doing it. They're still doing it, you can bet. After his helicopter was shot down, of course, I got a call. Actually, I didn't. My older son came out, and I was shocked to see them on the yard. I didn't know what had happened, but his funeral was closed casket, of course. They're all closed casket. But I didn't go because I knew I didn't want to see that, because I didn't want to remember my son that way. I wanted him to remember him like this. But someone that did go said that the only part of his face that was recognizable was his left ear and the left orbit of his left eye, and all the rest of it was smashed. Now, I couldn't go and see that, and yet our troops over there have to see that day in and day out, and people in parts and pieces. And then what do we see in our newspaper when one of those kids goes berserk? Of course they're going to go berserk. Of course they're going to go berserk. And while they go to jail, this circus goes on. Our nation now spends $1 billion a day on the military. In 2002, our nation's military budget was more than that of all the NATO nations combined: Russia, China, North Korea, Cuba, Syria, the Sudan, and all of our Pacific allies. Who benefits from this war? Global oil and military contractors. 3/4 of our Congress is invested in military contractors. The War Powers Act dates from 1973. The legislators who say they voted to give President Bush war powers because they didn't think he would use them must think we are very naive. Power is always power to use power. You don't give a policeman a ticket book and a car with a siren and red and blue flashing lights and say he's not going to use them, do you? No. It makes absolutely no sense. And they think we're too stupid to figure that out. No. You know how many of our senators voted against the War Powers Act? Only 23. 23. And one of them was our senior senator from Illinois. So we have something here in Illinois we have. So we need to ask our Congress to rescind the War Powers Act, because that's what they should do, and be responsible to the U.S. Constitution and the people of the United States, not global oil and their own interests in military contractors. Peace doesn't ever come out of war. World War I was the war to end all wars. It began with a terrorist act, the assassination of the Archduke of Austria in Sarajevo. So, what happened there? Austria invaded Serbia. Germany and Austria were allies, etc., etc., etc. And isn't that a marvelous word? Allies, allies. World War II, allies, allies. Well, World War I had allies too. So, what is Homeland Security? Spying on U.S. citizens, torturing prisoners. Brian was security for the Olympic Games. Brian was in the National Guard. He was stop-lost in the National Guard. We remember Munich. The purpose of the Guard is homeland security, and that's not the security for people to be able to spy on us and fly people around and torture them in countries. We have here in our audience a young man who was in the Coast Guard, who was actually stationed in a Coast Guard boat in Iraq. Now, the National Guard is over there, the Coast Guard is over there. There's something wrong here. What about Homeland Security? What about Homeland Security? Spying and sneaking is not going to do it. This is a poem I wrote shortly after Brian was killed. His boots are empty now, the hopeful one who wore them, crushed beneath the juggernaut of war. Where we laid him, a stone will stay, flags flutter and flowers sway, watered by tears and rain. War is cruel, and love must suffer long, but can it suffer so in vain? On our broken bodies, dare you take a stand, or will our deaths, just like our lives, be lost in desert sand? Thank you.